I'm 33 female. My husband, 40 male, is considering conceiving a child with his ex. Original post. I'll preface with the fact that therapy is an absolute given already, so I will be seeking that out. But in the meantime, need some advice to just process what to even say to a therapist when the time comes. Okay, so the title needs explanation because it is a complicated and nuanced, emotional situation. Apologies in advance for rambling. I am still trying to make sense of the entire situation while grieving and just trying to get the pertinent details out for advice. My husband and I have been happily married for 3 years now. My husband had a son from a previous relationship before we got together. I had been in my stepson's life since he was 2 years old. He turned 6 years old this year and got along very well. My stepson's biomum and I have never been friends in any capacity, but have always been cordial and respectful on the rare times we interacted and never had any issue with one another. My husband and biomum are similarly cordial, respectful, and communicative around their son's needs, but not really friends beyond that. We pretty much adhered to a parallel parenting style, and it worked fine. And 4 weeks ago, my stepson tragically and very suddenly died from an infection. It has been just absolutely devastating for everyone. Biomum is especially just wrecked. Her son was literally her entire life and purpose as a stay-at-home single mum. My grief cannot compare to the level I know she feels, and I do have compassion for that. My husband is, of course, also exceptionally distraught. I've been doing my best to be understanding in how they both need to grieve as parents. 2 days ago, my husband said he had something he needed to discuss with me. He explained that biomum approached him with a request. She asked my husband to be her sperm donor for IUI/IVF, as she desperately wants to be a mum again and wants to conceive a child with the same partner that her son had. He basically made it clear it is something he is willing, even wanting to do, but knows he needs to understand how I feel about it. Well, I don't know how exactly to communicate what I feel about it at this point, but the feelings are not good ones. I told him I needed some time to process this. My husband and I have been trying to have a child of our own for the past few months, so this is even more personally difficult for me to take in. I think I already know that I am not okay with my husband having another child with his ex, but I am thinking of suggesting we offer her financial support to seek out alternative fertility options that do not involve my husband's sperm and, quite honestly, do not involve 18 years of co-parenting. I'm actually not even sure what biomum and my husband are thinking regarding that in this scenario. Additionally, biomum is 41 years old, so there is a high probability that this whole situation would be a lot of money and time spent without any results. Overall, I think I'm just in shock here. I feel disrespected and angry, but I also understand it's not really just about me here, and that both of them are struggling to cope with this unimaginable grief. I would just appreciate some level advice from people outside this situation, specifically advice on how I should convey that I am not on board with this without making it a point of contention. My reaction for OP: this is certainly a sad story. Might the best way forward be for the three of them to meet and discuss how they feel? Now for the updates. Update 1. Thank you again to the blunt takes on my situation. Days are still mostly a blur right now, and writing out my issue and reading through the straightforward advice did help ground me a bit. I went ahead and took action on something I could control, reached out to my therapist and got a reference for a couples counsellor who is specifically experienced in dealing with grief around child loss. I was thankfully able to get us fit in for an appointment this week. After I returned home from work last night, my husband came into our room and immediately started sobbing and apologizing. He had spoken with his dad that day and told him what biomum had proposed. My father-in-law, bless him, had apparently really went off on the delusion of it. My husband and I had a long talk into the early morning about it, and he was able to recognize and explain that what seemed like interest in Biomum's request was misplaced desires. He explained that he's been so focused and excited about the prospect of planning for a child with me for the last 4 months and envisioning life as a father of 2, and it felt confusing to still be feeling that while dealing with the devastation of losing his son. Biomum's ask was a total shock for him too, and when you're face to face with someone grieving so deeply, asking for your help, a solution, however absurd it is, it's not always as easy to think logically. He was receptive and seemed relieved to have the therapy appointment, so I am hopeful that this will be a start in unpacking these complicated and conflicting feelings. We agreed that he should ultimately end all contact with Biomum, but will still reconsider what sort of short-term lump sum financial support makes sense, and consult with a lawyer to keep it entirely copacetic. I realise some commenters find the financial part odd, but I just strongly feel about extending appropriate generosity in this transition, since we have the means to do so. We also agreed to hold off on any child planning until sufficient time and counselling takes place. Also, I just want to address the comments on stay-at-home single mum aspect in defence of Biomum. I only mentioned that part to say how entirely devoted she was to her son. She was the primary physical caregiver, and yes, the child support order was enough, that it allowed her the option to stay home full-time and live comfortably but not extravagantly. Is it the same decision I would make as a career-minded person? No, but that was her prerogative and I do respect that. I really don't know much about Biomum as a person, but what I do know is that she was raising a kind, funny and smart boy who was loved and cared for, and that was what ultimately mattered. To say there's still a lot up in the air emotionally is an understatement. My husband and I are saying the right things to each other now. Who knows what it will end up being in practice, but I am hopeful at this point that my husband and I will be able to move forward together. Final update. I received many very kind, compassionate, helpful comments and PMs from my original posts, and thought it would be easiest to update here for those that asked because it's a wild development. I think you can see from my previous posts on my account in the comments as they were removed for low karma on this account. So I found out that my husband did not tell me the truth about Biomum's request. The truth being that he and Biomum had frozen embryos when they were together from years ago, and she was planning to use those. I obviously had no idea they had done this, and likely would never have known, if not for the fact that Biomum did have a successful implantation and is now in her first trimester. So my husband was forced to come clean. The distress I feel about everything that has happened in the past 4 months is beyond words. So that's it, that's the update. I don't know what to do regarding so many things about this. At least I have a good therapist. Story 2. Am I the arsehole here for being upset my husband shared a hotel room with another woman? Original post. I'm 36 female, my husband 42 male, is currently in Las Vegas for a national bowling tournament. He's there with his mum and her friends from their bowling league. He bowls in a Tuesday night league, often in state tournaments, and sometimes in national tournaments. Typically I go with him and sometimes bowl myself. This year, we decided I would stay home with our 3 boys, ages 4, 8 and 10, due to the heat and smoke in Vegas in July. We've been married for 11 years. His first marriage ended when he caught his wife cheating. I've never doubted his faithfulness. 3 nights ago, we were on FaceTime while he was in his hotel room. He mentioned possibly taking a nap due to lack of sleep. I asked if he had his room to himself and he said, "Oh no, someone is sharing with me." I asked who that was and he said something about a she. I was shocked and asked for clarification. He explained that he was supposed to share the room with his mum's boyfriend, but plans changed, and now he was sharing with another woman on the trip. He mentioned I had played cornhole with her last month at a get-together, but I couldn't remember her name or who she was. He seemed confused about why I was upset, so I dropped it to avoid ruining his time and bowling. I should have asked how he would feel if the roles were reversed, but I didn't want to fight while the kids were up or hear him dismiss my feelings. I've hardly slept since that night, with dreams full of worst-case scenarios. I haven't brought it up again, except for a few sarcastic comments about he would have more fun if I were there instead of his current company. He brushed those comments aside. So, here we are. He has spent the last 3 nights in a hotel room with a woman who is not me or his mother. Am I the one at fault for being upset? Now, on to the updates. Update 1. Okay, so I took some advice and grew a backbone. I texted him a little while ago instead of waiting until he got home. He and our boys are leaving for another trip tomorrow morning. I could not get the time off work, so I wanted to make sure we had the conversation fully before he left again. Before I give the update, I wanted to make a couple of things clear. I do trust my husband. He has never shown he would be the kind of person to cheat. And that is not what truly concerned me, even though I did have some pretty unpleasant dreams. My issue was that he was not upfront and honest with me. If I had done the same thing, he would have lost his mind, understandably. This is why I started the original post with, "He's just not that type." We do generally have great communication. The issue here is that I like to have this kind of conversation face to face, rather than over the phone. It's just not something I like to hash out when we are not in the same space. Obviously, in this situation, I should have made the exception and have now done so. Now for the update. I texted him today to tell him that this situation has been bothering me for the last 3 days. I had questions and we needed to have this conversation. I asked who the woman was, how old she was, and why didn't he tell me about the situation before I found out by accident? There was a mix-up with the rooms, something about someone not going, so people were shuffled. He was paired with a woman about my age. He said he didn't think it would be a big deal and didn't want to inconvenience everyone else on the trip. He also said he did not want to upset me, which is why he didn't right out tell me about it. He did tell me that I never had anything to worry about and he made sure they weren't in the room alone together, aside from when they were sleeping. I know, but I really do believe him on this. I was honest with him and told him that if the roles were reversed, out of respect for him, I would have called him right away to make sure he was okay with it. I told him that, while I trust him implicitly, I should not have found out the way I did, and he should not have blown off my concern. I told him that the lack of upfront communication felt suspicious, regardless of intention or what actually happened. As for not upsetting me, I told him I would have understood and not been upset if he had just been honest. He has apologized profusely. I told him next time to just communicate. He is adamant there will not be a next time. So, call me naive if you want, but I am dropping it at this point. He will be home this evening and I intend on having a nice evening with him before I don't see him again for another 2 weeks. Thank you for the advice. I cried it out when I found out her age, but getting this off my chest has been very relieving. Husband is coming home tonight and we will talk. I'm hoping it's his 82-year-old grandma. Update 2. I am not handling this as well as I thought I was. I had decided to let it go. I know he wasn't doing anything with this other woman. You can disagree and call me crazy if you like, but I do know that. However, as much as I have tried, I can't get past the fact that he made the decision to do something he knew I wouldn't be okay with, and not tell me about it. It all feels just so messed up. I have talked to a few of my co-workers. I don't really have any friends that aren't friends of his, but I talk to on a regular basis. And there is no way I will talk to my family because that's a shitstorm I can't handle right now. And they are all shocked and more angry for me than I have let myself be. Most of them know him, the kind of person he is, and what ended his first marriage. He used to work at the same company. We had less than 24 hours together before he, his mum, and all 3 of my children took their trip to the other side of the United States. I have been analysing my feelings and will continue to do so until they get back. Almost another week from now. I was on the phone with them this evening before they went to bed, and one of the first things my husband said to me was, "I'm sharing a bed with a redhead tonight," and I almost came unglued before I realised he was talking about one of our boys. We had 3 sons. After a very long pause, I said, "You better be talking about..." And I was so angry I don't understand how he didn't pick up on that. Every conversation we have had has been short and to the point because I'm really just not interested in talking to him. I have been calling my oldest son and talking with my boys instead. My mom hasn't really said much to me, which makes me think he has said something to her, which is fine, of course. I really don't care about that. Bottom line is, I don't know what to do. It is midnight at home. I tried to go to bed 2 hours ago and just could not stop sobbing, so I got up and let it go. It felt good to get it out, but I know I need to talk to someone. I have support lines through work I can call but won't tonight. Far too many drinks and I don't want to bring that into it as well. But I will call tomorrow. I know I should be upset and angry and not let it go. But I am afraid when I do talk to a professional, they will say I'm blowing it out of all proportion. I will still call, but I need to get my head straight first. He is bicycling for 7 days, over 400 miles. So, as much as I want to tear him a new one right now, especially after his completely insensitive and clueless joke this evening, I have not, because I want him home safe and sound. Regardless of my feelings in this moment, the most important thing is that my children's dad comes home safe, so we can hash this out, at least in the same city and not while he is 1,000 miles away with his mum and my children. Thank you for watching.